Question 1. Legal research strategies and efficiency. In a high-stakes environment where multiple challenges arise during litigation, an attorney is tasked with conducting urgent legal research to counter a motion for summary judgment filed by opposing counsel. The motion relies on a precedent set by the Court of Appeals that seemingly supports their argument. However, the attorney suspects that subsequent cases or legislative amendments may have weakened or overruled the precedent. Given the time and nature of the response, which legal research approach would be the most effective? A. Rely on legal encyclopedias and treatises to get a broad understanding of the area of law before responding. B. Use a citator service such as Shepard's, Keysight, or B. Cite to check whether the cited precedent is still good law. C. Search for secondary sources such as law reviews and American law reports or to see academic discussions on the issue. D. Review the original case law manually without using online legal platforms to avoid reliance on digital tools. Answer. B. Use a citator service such as Shepard's, Keysight, or B. Cite to check whether the cited precedent is still good law. Explanation. When facing a motion for summary judgment, it is critical to determine whether the precedent relied upon by opposing counsel remains binding and authoritative. The best method for this is using a citator service, e.g. Shepard's in LexisNexis, Keysight in Westlaw, or B. Cite in Bloomberg Law, which tracks subsequent treatment of case. If the case has been overturned, distinguished, or limited by later decisions, the attorney can argue that the precedent is no longer valid, while the other options are incorrect. Legal encyclopedias and treatises provide general overviews, but are not authoritative in determining the validity of case law. C. Secondary sources like law reviews can offer in-depth discussions but do not establish whether case overruled or distinguished in court. D. Manually reviewing case law without citator is inefficient and risks missing recent developments, as new rulings may not be found without proper citator check. Question 2. Legal citation and Blue Book formatting. During a major transformation where existing methods of legal citation are being updated, a law clerk is required to draft a memorandum following the Blue Book citation rules. The memorandum references the U.S. Supreme Court case, a state statute, and an online government report. Which of the following best adheres to proper Blue Book formatting? A. Roe v. Wade 410 U.S. 113 1973 42 U.S. C. SS 1983 2023 U.S. Depth to Justice Crime Statistics Rio https www.justice.gov/reports last visited Feb 15 2024. B. Roe v. Wade 410 as 113 1973 of 42 USC 1983 United States Department of Justice Crime Statistics Report available at www.justice.gov/reports. C. Roe v. Wade 410 U.S. 113 42 USC 1983 U.S. Department of Justice Crime Stats Report online at gepjustice.gov/reports. D. Roe v. Wade 410 U.S. 113 1973 of 42 U.S.C. SS 1983 Dutch Crime Stat https www.justice.gov/reports. Answer. A. Roe v. Wade 410 U.S. 113 1973 of 42 U.S.C. SS 1983 2023 U.S. Depth to Justice Crime Statistics Rio https www.justice.gov/reports last visited Feb 15 2024. Explanation. The Blue Book citation system requires precise formatting for case law, statutes, and online sources. Case law. Supreme Court cases must be italicized. Roe v. Wade include the volume number U.S. reporter abbreviation, page number, and year in parentheses. Statutes. Federal statutes must use the proper U.S. code abbreviation 42 U.S.C. section symbol SS and the year of the most recent version. Online government sources. Government reports require the agency name, title RL, and last visited date if no publication date is available. Why the other options are incorrect. B. Fails to italicize the case name and improperly abbreviates the U.S. code. C. Omits necessary formatting elements such as section symbols and proper citation for online sources. D. Improperly abbreviates Dutch and does not include last visited date for the online report. Question 3. Persuasive legal writing. Appellate briefs during an emergency response where multiple areas are impacted by controversial judicial ruling. An appellate attorney is drafting brief to overturn lower court's decision. The key argument hinges on demonstrating that the trial court misapplied precedent is the most effective way to structure the argument to maximize persuasiveness. A. Begin by emphasizing the appellant's personal grievances with the ruling, followed by detailed statutory analysis. B. Structure the argument using the Iraq method, issue, rule, application, conclusion, emphasizing how binding precedent requires different outcome. C. Rely primarily on rhetorical appeals and public policy arguments, emphasizing legal authority to appeal to judicial discretion. D. Use chronological review of history, detailing every prior case in the jurisdiction that addressed similar issue, even if some are tangentially related. Answer B. Structure the argument using the Iraq method, issue, rule, application, conclusion, emphasizing how binding precedent requires a different outcome, explanation. The Iraq issue, rule, application, conclusion method is the gold standard in legal writing, particularly in appellate briefs. It ensures a logical flow. Issue, clearly state the legal issue being appealed. Rule, identify the controlling precedent and relevant statutory provisions. Application, analyze how the trial court misapplied the law and why precedent mandates a different ruling. Conclusion, reinforce why the appellate court must reverse or remand a decision, why the other options are incorrect. 8. Personal grievances do not form the basis of a strong legal argument. Courts require analysis of legal authority, not subjective complaints. C. While policy arguments can be persuasive, they must be ground legal precedent rather than rhetorical appeals. Judges are bound by the law, not public sentiment. D. Overloading. A brief with excessive case history weakens clarity. Appellate courts focus on binding precedent, not a comprehensive historical review. Question 4. During a comprehensive review of a process that needs improvement, a legal researcher is tasked with investigating a statutory provision that has been recently amended by the legislature. The researcher finds multiple sources, including the original statute, legislative history, documents, annotated codes, and a recent appellate court decision interpreting the amended statute. The attorney supervising the researcher requests a memorandum explaining the binding nature of each source and its relevance to legal argumentation. Which of the following is the most accurate assessment of the hierarchy of legal authority in this scenario? A. The appellate court decision is the highest authority because judicial interpretations are binding and legislative history is persuasive but not controlling. B. The annotated code is the most authoritative because it consolidates statutory law and provides judicial annotations that serve as binding precedent. C. The legislative history carries the highest authority since it clarifies legislative intent and overrides conflicting interpretations. D. The original statute, even if outdated, remains the highest authority because statutory language must be interpreted strictly without relying on judicial decisions. Answer A. The appellate court decision is the highest authority because judicial interpretations are binding and legislative history is persuasive but not controlling. Explanation. Legal research follows a strict hierarchy of legal authority which determines how different sources should be prioritized. Statutory law primary source is created by legislatures and is binding, but ambiguities or amendments may require judicial interpretation. Judicial decisions, case law interpreting statutes, particularly from high courts within the same jurisdiction, carry binding precedent under stare decisis. Lower courts must follow these decisions. Annotated codes provide summaries of case law but do not independently establish precedent. They serve as a reference tool rather than a binding authority. Legislative history e.g. committee reports, floor debates can clarify legislative intent but is only persuasive, not controlling in statutory interpretation. Courts may consider it but are not bound by it. Thus, an appellate court's interpretation of an amended statute holds them. Weight in legal argumentation, making option the correct answer. Question 5. While analyzing the root causes of sequential problems in a legal memorandum, a junior associate is assigned to draft a predictive legal analysis concerning whether a specific statute applies retroactively. The statute was enacted in 2022 and imposes stricter regulatory requirements on financial institutions. A client, a bank, is concerned about potential liability for actions taken in 2021. Societe identifies 4 key legal principles related to retroactivity. Which of the following principles provides the strongest argument against retroactive application of the statute? A retroactive application is presumed unless the legislature explicitly states otherwise. B. Statutory retroactivity is permitted if it serves a compelling government interest, even if the statute is silent on retroactivity. C. Courts generally presume statutes apply prospectively unless the legislature clearly indicates retroactive intent. D. Criminal statutes may be applied retroactively if they enhance penalties rather than create. Answer: C. Courts generally presume statutes apply prospectively unless the legislature clearly indicates retroactive intent. Explanation: the presumption against retroactivity is a well-established legal doctrine. Courts typically assume that statutes apply prospectively, meaning they govern future conduct rather than past actions, unless there is clear legislative intent to the contrary. Option is incorrect because the presumption is actually against retroactivity unless the statute explicitly states otherwise. Option B is incorrect because even when a statute serves a compelling government interest, courts require explicit retroactive language in the statute itself. Option D is incorrect because criminal statutes cannot be retroactively applied if they increase penalties, as this would violate the ex post facto clause of the U.S. Constitution. Thus, option C correctly reflects the fundamental principle that courts disfavor retroactive laws unless the legislature explicitly intends them to apply to past conduct. Question 6. When implementing new protocols in a shared environment, a law firm revises its internal guidelines for conducting online legal research. A senior attorney emphasizes that researchers must verify the currency and authority of any case law before citing it in a memorandum. A junior associate suggests that simply locating a case on Westlaw or LexisNexis guarantees that it is still good law. Which of the following is the best for ensuring that a case remains valid precedent? A. Using Shepard's or Keysight to check for negative treatment, such as overruling, reversal, or criticism. B. Relying on the date of publication in the case reporter, since only recently published cases remain binding. C. Assuming that case is still good law if it appears in an online database without red flag or warning. D. Citing only U.S. Supreme Court decisions, since they have nationwide authority and cannot be overturned. Answer A. Using Shepard's or Keysight to check for negative treatment, such as overruling, reversal, or criticism. Explanation: ensuring that validity of case law is a crucial part of legal research. Relying on an outdated or overruled case can severely weaken legal arguments. Option is correct because data services such as Shepard's, LexisNexis, and Keysight, Westlaw provide comprehensive analysis of how case has been treated in subsequent decisions. They indicate if case has been overruled, reversed, criticized, or distinguished, ensuring that researchers cite only valid precedent. Option B is incorrect because the date of publication alone does not determine validity. Older cases can still be binding if they have not been overturned. Option C is incorrect because the absence of red flag or warning does not guarantee that case remains good law. Citator tools must be consulted for authoritative confirmation. Option D is incorrect because while U.S. Supreme Court decisions have nationwide authority, they can be limited, distinguished, or overturned by constitutional amendments or new rulings. Thus, option provides the best approach to ensuring that case is still good law. Question 7. A law firm is advising a corporate client on regulatory compliance related to environmental law. A newly passed state regulation imposes stricter pollution controls than the existing federal standards set by the Environmental Protection Agency (EPA). The client, a manufacturing company, is concerned about whether it must comply with the state regulation or if the federal standard preempts it. Which of the following provides the most accurate explanation of the relationship between federal and state environmental regulations? A. Federal law always preempts state law, meaning the client only needs to comply with the EPA's regulations. B. States can impose stricter environmental regulations than federal standards, and businesses must comply with both sets of laws. C. If federal agency has issued regulation, state governments cannot enforce any additional requirements in the same area. D. Only the Supreme Court can determine if state regulation is preempted, so compliance decisions should be postponed until litigation clarifies the issue. Answer B. States can impose stricter environmental regulations than federal standards, and businesses must comply with both sets of laws. Explanation: the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution establishes that federal law preempts conflicting state law. However, in areas where Congress has not explicitly occupied the entire field, states can impose stricter regulations. Option is incorrect because federal preemption applies only when Congress or a federal agency explicitly preempts state regulation. Option C is incorrect because many federal laws, including the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act, allow states to enact stricter regulations. Option D is incorrect because compliance decisions cannot be postponed indefinitely. Businesses must assume the state law is valid unless a court rules otherwise. Thus, option B correctly explains that states can impose stricter environmental standards than the federal government. Question 8. A company is negotiating a multi-million-dollar contract with an international supplier. The parties disagree on whether a contract must be in writing to be enforceable. The supplier argues that verbal agreements should be legally binding, while the U.S. based client insists that a written agreement is required under the statute of frauds. Which of the following types of contracts must typically be in writing to be enforceable under the statute of frauds? The contracts for the sale of goods valued at $250 or more. B. Contracts that can be fully performed within 1 year. C. Contracts involving real estate transactions. D. Employment contracts of any duration. Answer: C. Contracts involving real estate transactions. Explanation: the statute of frauds requires that certain contracts must be in writing to be legally enforceable, including contracts for the sale of land or real estate, contracts that cannot be performed within 1 year, contracts for the sale of goods over $500 under the Act, contracts guaranteeing another person's death. Option is incorrect because the Uniform Commercial Code requires written contract for goods over $500, not $250. Option B is incorrect because only contracts that cannot be performed within 1 year require written agreement. Option D is incorrect because employment contracts do not always require written agreement unless they exceed 1 year. Thus, option C is correct because real estate contracts must always be in writing to be enforceable. Question 9. An insurance company is determining liability for an automobile accident where one driver was injured. The injured driver claims damages, but the other driver argues that the injured party was also at fault. The case is being heard in a state that follows a comparative negligence system. How will the court determine damages under comparative negligence? A. The injured driver can recover full damages unless they were more than 50% at fault. B. The injured driver cannot recover damages if they were even 1% at fault. C. The injured driver's recovery will be reduced by their percentage of fault. D. The at-fault driver must pay the full damages unless they can prove the other party was equally responsible. Answer: C. The injured driver's recovery will be reduced by their percentage of fault. Explanation: under comparative negligence, courts assign percentage of fault to each party and reduce damages accordingly. Option is incorrect because some states use modified comparative negligence rule where plaintiff cannot recover if they are 51% or more at fault. Option B is incorrect because this describes contributory negligence, much stricter system that bars recovery if the plaintiff was even 1% at fault. Option D is incorrect because damages are divided based on proportional fault, not an all or nothing system. Thus, option C correctly reflects how comparative negligence works. Damages are reduced based on the injured party's share of fault. Question 10. A tenant and landlord dispute arises over a rental agreement that does not specify who is responsible for repairs. The tenant argues that the landlord is responsible for fixing a leaking roof, while the landlord insists that repairs are the tenant's responsibility. Which of the following best describes the general legal principle governing landlord-tenant repair obligations? A. Landlords are required to maintain rental properties in habitable condition even if the lease is silent on repairs. B. Tenants are responsible for all repairs unless the lease specifically states otherwise. C. Landlords have no legal obligation to maintain property once the lease is signed. D. Repair obligations are determined solely by the lease and courts cannot impose additional duties. Answer: A. Landlords are required to maintain rental properties in a habitable condition even if the lease is silent on repairs. Explanation: the implied warranty of habitability requires landlords to maintain safe and livable conditions, including fixing major structural issues such as leaking roofs, heating failures, or plumbing problems. Option B is incorrect because tenants are typically responsible only for minor maintenance, e.g., changing light bulbs, Keeping the unit clean. Option C is incorrect because landlords must ensure basic livability under state and local housing codes. Option D is incorrect because courts can impose repair duties based on public policy even if a lease is silent on the matter. Thus option A correctly states that landlords must provide habitable conditions regardless of lease terms. Question 11. An individual is accused of a crime but argues that the police violated their constitutional rights during interrogation. The defense claims that the suspect was not informed of their right to remain silent before answering incriminating questions. Which legal precedent is most relevant to this case? A. Gideon v. Wainwright, 1963. Right to an attorney. B. Miranda v. Arizona, 1966. Right against self-incrimination. C. Mapp v. Ohio, 1961. Exclusion of illegally obtained evidence. D. Terry v. Ohio, 1968. Stop and frisk searches. Answer B. Miranda v. Arizona, 1966. Right against self-incrimination. Explanation. Miranda v. Arizona, 1966 established that police must inform suspects of their rights before custodial interrogation, including the right to remain silent, that statements can be used against them, the right to an attorney. Option Gideon v. Wainwright is about the right to an attorney in felony cases, not self-incrimination. Option C. Mapp v. Ohio deals with illegal searches and evidence exclusion. Option D. Terry v. Ohio involves stop and frisk searches. Thus, option B correctly identifies Miranda v. Arizona as the key precedent. Question 12. While analyzing the root causes of sequential problems in a supply chain network, a company notices that inventory shortages at one distribution center lead to unexpected delays in another region. The issue worsens due to a combination of miscommunication, supplier constraints, and fluctuating demand. What strategy is most effective for addressing this type of supply chain issue? A. Increasing safety stock at each distribution center without adjusting demand forecasts. B. Implementing a real-time inventory tracking system and improving supplier coordination. C. Reducing inventory levels at all locations to minimize excess costs. D. Focusing only on upstream suppliers since they control raw material availability. Answer B. Implementing a real-time inventory tracking system and improving supplier coordination. Explanation. Supply chain disruptions caused by sequential issues require a holistic approach, including better tracking and communication. Option is incorrect because simply increasing safety stock does not address the root cause of demand fluctuations and supplier delays. Option C is incorrect because reducing inventory levels without improved forecasting can worsen shortages. Option D is incorrect because focusing only on suppliers ignores internal inefficiencies and demand shifts. Thus, option B is correct. Real-time tracking and supplier coordination increase visibility and responsiveness. Question 13. In a situation where formal requirements conflict with practical constraints, a hospital is struggling to balance strict regulatory standards with real-world limitations in staffing and resources. A new compliance rule requires that all patient records be reviewed within 24 hours, but limited staff availability makes full compliance challenging. Which approach best addresses this issue while maintaining compliance? A. Hiring additional staff immediately to meet the requirement. B. Prioritizing high-risk cases for review while implementing automation for routine cases. C. Delaying compliance until additional funding becomes available. D. Reducing documentation requirements to speed up reviews. Answer B. Prioritizing high-risk cases for review while implementing automation for routine cases. Explanation. Balancing compliance and real-world constraints requires a strategic approach that ensures patient safety without overwhelming staff. Option is impractical because hiring staff immediately may not be feasible. Option C is incorrect because delaying compliance exposes the hospital to regulatory penalties. Option D is incorrect because reducing documentation may violate legal and accreditation standards. Thus, option B is correct. Focusing on high-risk cases first and using automation optimizes efficiency while maintaining compliance. Question 14. When implementing new protocols in a shared environment, a financial institution introduces stricter fraud detection measures that require additional verification steps for transactions. However, employees report that the new process slows down customer service and creates frustration. Which solution best balances security with efficiency? A. Reverting to the old system to maintain faster service. B. Allowing employees to bypass security steps for trusted customers. C. Using machine learning to flag only high-risk transactions for additional verification. D. Applying the new process to all transactions equally without exceptions. Answer: C. Using machine learning to flag only high-risk transactions for additional verification. Explanation: balancing security and efficiency requires targeted verification rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. Option is incorrect because reverting eliminates necessary security enhancements. Option B is incorrect because allowing bypasses creates potential fraud vulnerabilities. Option D is inefficient because applying the process to all transactions slows operations unnecessarily. Thus, option C is correct. Machine learning improves security while reducing disruptions for low-risk transactions. Question 15. During a comprehensive review of a process that needs improvement, a retail company identifies excessive delays in online order fulfillment. Analysis reveals that manual order processing is causing bottlenecks. Which strategy is most effective for resolving this issue? A. Increasing staff to manually handle orders more quickly. B. Automating key order processing steps to reduce manual intervention. C. Outsourcing order fulfillment to a third-party vendor. D. Restricting order volume to avoid overwhelming the system. Answer: B. Automating key order processing steps to reduce manual intervention. Explanation: option is inefficient because increasing staff does not address process inefficiencies. Option C is risky because outsourcing may reduce quality control. Option D is counterproductive because restricting orders limits revenue potential. Thus, option B is correct. Automation reduces processing time without increasing costs. Question 16. In a high-stakes environment where multiple challenges must be addressed simultaneously, a large hospital is transitioning to a new electronic health records (EHR) system. Doctors and nurses are concerned that workflow disruptions and data migration errors could impact patient care. What is the most effective approach to ensure a smooth transition? A. Immediately switching to the new system without a phased approach. B. Training staff in advance while running both old and new systems in parallel. C. Delaying implementation indefinitely to avoid short-term disruptions. D. Relying solely on personnel to handle the transition without medical staff input. Answer: B. Training staff in advance while running both old and new systems in parallel. Explanation: a phased implementation with comprehensive training ensures a smoother transition. Option A is too risky because an immediate switch can lead to errors and confusion. Option C is incorrect because delaying indefinitely prevents technological progress. Option D is incorrect because medical staff must be involved to ensure usability. Thus, option B is correct. Parallel system approach minimizes risk. Question 17. While examining inconsistencies across various units in a multinational corporation, leadership discovers that regional teams follow different data reporting standards, making global performance comparisons difficult. Which strategy best resolves this issue? A. Enforcing a single reporting format without flexibility. B. Developing a standardized framework with some local adaptability. C. Allowing each region to maintain its own reporting methods. D. Focusing only on the most profitable regions for standardization. Answer: B. Developing a standardized framework with some local adaptability. Explanation: option is too rigid, potentially alienating regional teams. Option C fails to resolve inconsistencies. Option D creates bias and does not ensure global transparency. Thus, option B is correct. Hybrid standard ensures consistency and adaptability. Question 18. During an emergency response where multiple areas are impacted, a disaster relief team must allocate limited resources across affected communities. Some areas need medical supplies, while others need clean water and shelter. Which strategy is most effective? A. Focusing all resources on the largest population centers first. B. Distributing resources based on real-time assessment of urgent needs. C. Providing equal amounts of aid to all locations regardless of severity. D. Waiting for additional supplies before distributing anything. Answer: B. Distributing resources based on real-time assessment of urgent needs. Explanation: option is incorrect because prioritizing only large population centers may leave critical smaller areas underserved. Option C is incorrect because an equal distribution approach does not consider varying levels of need. Option D is incorrect because waiting delays aid delivery, potentially worsening conditions. A real-time needs assessment ensures resources go where they are most needed, maximizing impact and efficiency. Question 19. When improving a process that shows unexpected results, a software development team finds that newly deployed AI features behave unpredictably in real-world user interactions. What is the best approach to resolve this? A. Rolling back the feature entirely and avoiding AI implementation. B. Collecting user feedback and adjusting AI parameters iteratively. C. Forcing users to adapt to the AI current behavior. D. Disabling AI across the platform permanently. Answer. B. Collecting user feedback and adjusting AI parameters iteratively. Explanation. Option is incorrect because rolling back the AI entirely prevents innovation rather than addressing issues. Option C is incorrect because forcing users to adapt ignores usability concerns, reducing adoption. Option D is incorrect because disabling AI permanently discards potential benefits. An iterative approach. Gathering feedback, fine-tuning parameters, and continuously improving ensures AI aligns with user needs while minimizing disruptions. Question 20. In a situation where resource allocation becomes increasingly complex, a government agency must decide how to distribute limited funding between education, healthcare, and infrastructure projects. Which decision-making framework is most appropriate? A. Using a fixed percentage allocation regardless of changing needs. B. Prioritizing funding based on economic impact and public demand. C. Spreading funds evenly across all sectors. D. Delaying funding decisions until more resources are available. Answer. B. Prioritizing funding based on economic impact and public demand. Explanation. Option is incorrect because a fixed percentage allocation does not adapt to changing needs. Option C is incorrect because an equal distribution may not address the most urgent issues. Option D is incorrect because delaying decisions results in missed opportunities for improvements. Using economic impact and public demand as decision criteria ensures maximum benefit for society while addressing pressing needs. Question 21. During the introduction of new methods where coordination across teams is essential, a company launches a remote work policy. However, different teams struggle to stay aligned on project goals due to communication gaps. Which approach best addresses this issue? A. Mandating daily in-person meetings despite the remote policy. B. Implementing structured virtual collaboration tools and guidelines. C. Allowing each team to determine its own approach without standardization. D. Returning to an entirely office-based model. Answer. B. Implementing structured virtual collaboration tools and guidelines. Explanation. Option is incorrect because forcing in-person meetings contradicts the remote work model. Option C is incorrect because allowing each team to set its own approach leads to inconsistency. Option D is incorrect because abandoning remote work ignores modern workplace flexibility. Using structured collaboration tools, e.g. Slack, Asana, Zoom, and clear guidelines improves communication and coordination in remote settings. Question 22. When scaling up operations that experience significant inefficiencies, a fast-growing tech startup finds that customer service wait times are increasing, leading to complaints. What is the best strategy to address this issue? A. Hiring more support staff while implementing automation for common inquiries. B. Eliminating phone support to focus only on email inquiries. C. Encouraging customers to be patient during the scaling process. D. Delaying expansion until support teams catch up. Answer A. Hiring more support staff while implementing automation for common inquiries. Explanation. Option B is incorrect because eliminating phone support removes an essential customer service channel. Option C is incorrect because asking for patience does not solve the underlying issue. Option D is incorrect because delaying expansion limits business growth. A hybrid approach of expanding support teams and automating simple tasks improves efficiency and customer satisfaction. Question 23. In a multi-location scenario where consistency requirements are critical, a restaurant chain notices that food quality and service levels vary significantly across different locations. Which solution best ensures consistency? A. Developing a comprehensive training program and quality control audits. B. Allowing each location to operate independently without strict guidelines. C. Reducing menu options to make consistency easier to manage. D. Centralizing all cooking processes at a single location and shipping meals. Answer A. Developing a comprehensive training program and quality control audits. Explanation. Option B is incorrect because allowing independent operations leads to inconsistency. Option C is incorrect because reducing menu options limits business appeal without solving training gaps. Option D is incorrect because centralizing food preparation is impractical and removes freshness from meals. A standardized training program with ongoing quality audits ensures uniform service and product quality across all locations. Question 24. While updating traditional approaches where interconnections exist between different departments, a manufacturing firm upgrades its inventory management system. However, the change disrupts supply chain coordination with vendors. What is the best way to prevent further disruptions? A. Collaborating with vendors to align system changes and integration. B. Focusing only on internal process improvements. C. Reverting to the old system to avoid vendor disruptions. D. Making vendors adjust without involving them in decision-making. Answer A. Collaborating with vendors to align system changes and integration. Explanation. Option B is incorrect because focusing only on internal processes ignores supply chain partners, worsening disruptions. Option C is incorrect because reverting to the old system prevents progress. Option D is incorrect because forcing vendors to adjust without collaboration may damage relationships. Proactively engaging vendors ensures smooth integration, preventing disruptions and delays. Question 25. During a seamless transition where continuity must be maintained, a law firm is moving its case management software to a cloud-based platform. Attorneys worry about data loss and system downtime affecting active cases. Which approach ensures a smooth transition? A. Migrating data in phases while keeping a backup system available. B. Shutting down operations for a full migration all at once. C. Delaying the transition indefinitely to avoid risks. D. Transferring all data at once without testing. Answer A. Migrating data in phases while keeping a backup system available. Explanation. Option B is incorrect because shutting down operations for a full migration creates major disruptions. Option C is incorrect because delaying indefinitely prevents technology improvements. Option D is incorrect because transferring all data at once without testing risks errors and downtime. A phased migration with backups ensures a smooth transition, minimizing business disruptions. Question 26. During a major transformation where existing methods must be re-evaluated, a legal research team is tasked with identifying the most authoritative sources to support a policy change within a government agency. The agency director insists that recent administrative decisions should be prioritized over judicial opinions. However, several legal researchers argue that binding judicial precedent must take precedence over agency rulings. How should the legal team proceed in determining the hierarchy of legal authority? A. Follow the agency director's directive and prioritize administrative decisions since they are most relevant to the agency's function. B. Treat judicial precedent as binding authority and rely on agency decisions only for clarification. C. Consider both judicial precedent and agency decisions, but give greater weight to judicial rulings unless there is ambiguity in the law. D. Ignore administrative decisions entirely, as they do not have legal weight compared to statutory law and judicial precedent. Answer. C. Consider both judicial precedent and agency decisions, but give greater weight to judicial rulings unless there is ambiguity in the law. Explanation. The hierarchy of legal authority determines how laws, regulations, and court decisions interact. Judicial precedent, particularly from appellate and Supreme Courts, generally holds greater weight than administrative decisions. However, administrative decisions may still provide interpretative guidance in regulatory contexts. Judicial precedent. Courts establish binding precedents that lower courts and agencies must follow. Under the principle of stare decisis, past judicial rulings are treated as authoritative when resolving similar legal questions. Administrative decisions. Agencies have specialized expertise and interpret regulations within their jurisdiction. Their rulings may guide enforcement and application, but are subject to judicial review. Balancing the two. Courts defer to agency interpretations when statutory language is ambiguous, a principle upheld. Chevron U.S.A. Inc. v. Natural Resources Defense Council Inc. 1984. However, clear judicial precedent overrides conflicting agency interpretations. Thus, the legal team must weigh judicial precedent more heavily while considering administrative rulings for additional clarification. Question 27. In a situation where formal requirements conflict with practical realities, a legal analyst is reviewing statutory language related to the citation format required in appellate court filings. The statute mandates a specific citation format aligned with the Blue Book, but the jurisdiction's highest court has recently issued a local rule modifying certain citation practices. How should the legal analyst reconcile these conflicting requirements? A. Follow the statutory requirements strictly as legislative enactments override judicial procedural rules. B. Adhere to the court's local rule, as courts have the authority to regulate citation formats in their jurisdiction. C. Use the Blue Book format exclusively, since it is a nationally accepted standard. D. Apply both the statutory and court-modified formats, providing parallel citations whenever possible. Answer. B. Adhere to the court's local rule, as courts have the authority to regulate citation formats in their jurisdiction. Explanation. Courts have inherent authority to regulate procedural matters, including citation formats. While statutes establish overarching legal principles, courts control the rules governing filings within their jurisdiction. Court rules versus statutes. Courts issue local rules to ensure consistency in legal. If a conflict arises between statutory requirements and court procedural rules, courts typically enforce their own standards. The principle of judicial independence allows courts to establish and modify procedural regulations, citation standards. The Blue Book serves as a widely accepted guide, but jurisdictions may adopt variations. The legal analyst must check whether the local rule overrides statutory references or whether approach is permissible. Precedent. Courts expect attorneys to comply with jurisdiction-specific rules. Failure to follow the prescribed format may result in procedural rejections or adverse rulings. Given that courts control their procedural processes, the legal analyst should prioritize the jurisdiction's highest court's directive. Question 28. While analyzing the root causes of sequential problems in legal citations, a law clerk notices that multiple cases in a legal memorandum reference outdated statutory provisions. The supervising attorney instructs the clerk to shepherdize the citations to ensure accuracy. What is the best course of action for the law clerk? A. Use Keysight, Westlaw, or Shepard's LexisNexis to check if the cases are still good law and update references accordingly. B. Rely on the original citations in the memorandum as they reflect the law at the time of publication. C. Replace the outdated statutes with newer ones without checking how courts have interpreted them. D. Remove any cases that have been overruled, regardless of whether subsequent courts have distinguished them in specific contexts. Answer A. Use Keysight, Westlaw, or Shepard's LexisNexis to check if the cases are still good law and update references accordingly. Explanation. Legal citations must be accurate and reflect current law. Data services such as Shepard's LexisNexis and Keysight Westlaw allow legal professionals to verify whether cases remain valid. Purpose of Citator services. These tools identify whether case has been overruled, distinguished, questioned, or reviewed by later rulings. Reliability of precedent. Case that has been overturned in one jurisdiction may still hold persuasive value elsewhere. Updating references. If statutory provisions have changed, the law clerk must update citations and note any significant judicial interpretations. Failing to verify legal authority may result in citing bad law, potentially undermining legal arguments. Therefore, shepardizing the cases is the best practice. Question 29. During a comprehensive review of a process that needs improvement, a law professor assigns students to draft an appellate brief requiring persuasive legal writing. The students are instructed to apply the Iraq issue, rule, application, conclusion method effectively. Which of the following best demonstrates proper use of the Iraq method in a legal argument? A. Stating the conclusion first, then listing relevant cases without analysis. B. Presenting the legal issue, summarizing statutes and applying them to the facts before concluding. C. Quoting extensive case law without integrating it into the argument. D. Focusing only on the rule and application while omitting the issue, statement, and conclusion. Answer. B. Presenting the legal issue, summarizing statutes and applying them to the facts before concluding. Explanation. The Iraq method is a structured approach to legal writing that ensures clarity and logical argumentation. Issue. Clearly define the legal question. Rule. State the relevant legal principles, statutes, or case law. Application. Apply the rule to the specific facts of the case. Conclusion. Summarize the findings based on the application. Why B is correct. This option correctly follows the Iraq structure, ensuring that the argument is well supported, while the other options are incorrect. 8. Starting with the conclusion and listing cases. Without analysis fails to develop a logical argument. C. Quoting case law extensively without context weakens persuasiveness. Omitting the issue in conclusion leads to an incomplete argument. A well-structured brief using Iraq is critical for effective legal advocacy. Question 30. When scaling up operations that experience significant legal challenges, a law firm decides to implement AI-powered legal research tools. However, ethical concerns arise regarding the accuracy and bias of AI-generated legal analysis. What is the best approach for legal professionals using AI in legal research? A. Rely exclusively on AI-generated research since it increases efficiency. B. Use AI as a supplementary tool while independently verifying all legal conclusions. C. Avoid AI entirely due to potential inaccuracies and ethical concerns. D. Trust AI for all citation analysis as modern algorithms are error-free. Answer: B. Use AI as a supplementary tool while independently verifying all legal conclusions. Explanation: AI has transformed legal research but comes with ethical responsibilities. AI is a supplementary tool. AI tools like Casitex, ROS, intelligence enhance efficiency but should not replace human judgment. Accuracy and bias risks. AI-generated research may contain errors or implicit biases, as seen in cases where AI misinterpreted legal principles. Ethical considerations. The model rules of professional conduct require lawyers to ensure competence and diligence in legal research. Human oversight. Courts have penalized attorneys for submitting AI-generated briefs with fabricated citations. Model v. Avianca Inc. 2023. Thus, legal professionals must verify AI research results and cross-check legal sources for accuracy.